Have you ever read or watched the headlines and thought, there has to be more to the story than this? I do all the time. And I live here in the Middle East. I'm Kayla Sprague with All Israel News. For us in Israel, October 7th wasn't just a headline. It was fear, heartbreak, and devastating loss. We continue to mourn with those who mourn. But the story doesn't stop there. I had the privilege of serving as assistant producer on a new documentary called Beauty for Ashes. Today, I get to sit down with its director, Rebecca Kroese, and talk about why she made this film, the hope she discovered along the way, and how believers around the world can be a part of the story. I'm so excited for this moment. I'm so grateful that all of you are here for this moment. There's been time and sweat and blood and prayers and tears, and I'm honored to sit with you in this setting and really hear from you. The director of Beauty for Ashes, I learned so much from you in this process of really wanting to tell this story well. So Rebecca, why did you create Beauty for Ashes? What moved you in this moment of such pain in Israel to make this film?
I'm a new mom in Israel. We lived here now 4 years. And October 7th was the greatest trauma that this nation, my new nation, has gone through. And then to see shortly, a few weeks after October 7th, the response in the media and the echoes around the world, it shocked my system to see the anti-Semitism rising, the disinformation that was rising. And
such a quick shift, went from
fast.
compassion to judgment and animosity. It was overwhelming while still grieving here to then take on a different war in a way.
Absolutely. The war in the media was a real one, and it was becoming more evident every day. For me, the reason why we made this documentary is to be a voice in the midst of that, and specifically one on behalf of the believing community here in Israel, because that was a story that was not being told whatsoever.
Начался такой сильный обстрел, которого я не помню очень давно.
All my neighbors are cheering. I haven't seen such a dark moments.
So I took the car down south. This has been my 4th call up.
They were saying that he is considered to be a hostage.
October 7th was a shock.
בן אדם, איש, אישה, מבוגר, זקנה.
Вдруг я слышу дикие крики.
The terrorists saw Dina and started to shoot by our windows.
A terrorist found him under a tree and he shot him in the back.
As the time of the rockets coming in the road, we start to pray protection for the city.
And all of a sudden there was a large explosion. The Lord looked after us. Yeah, the Lord saved us that day.
On October the 7th, we had, as it were, the hands and feet of Jesus all over the land of Israel.
Anyone showing up during a war, it fills my heart with hope and gratitude.
This is not war for land. It's about religion.
I know what the programs of the Muslim Brotherhood lead to. I lived that life.
It feels like the world is split into 2 camps. And us as believers, I think we're called to a higher calling.
Beauty for Ashes was produced by FIRM, the Fellowship of Israelite Ministries, and it isn't a political film, it's a human one. In it, you'll hear from a Palestinian pastor, a Jewish mother, an Israeli soldier, and others who lived through the war in ways the news never showed you. Very different voices, but one unshakable truth emerges. Only faith in Yeshua can bring true healing, reconciliation, and hope. This film is dedicated to those who have lost their lives on all sides of this conflict. A sober reminder of the pain and the cost of war, and the need for deep peace and healing. The story highlights something often overlooked in global coverage. The kingdom of God isn't about taking sides. There's a higher calling, an invitation where Jew and Arab, Israeli and Palestinian stand together in the love of Yeshua. Even in the midst of heartbreak, believers chose courage over despair and unity over division. How you decided what direction to go as we desired to tell the story of believers in the land and lift up what God was doing here, even in the midst of the darkness.
Absolutely. This story is so multifaceted. There is the political side, the military side, the spiritual side, believers, hostages, Hamas. And it was important for me to, especially in the middle of the media war of misinformation, that we were doing our very best to be as integrous as we possibly could in our storytelling. And I remember the shock on even your face when I said, so that means I think we should interview a Hamas terrorist and let them tell their own story. Obviously, I didn't want to do that to my team, so we found other ways to be able to let them tell their own story because they were doing that already. But it shows the importance of wanting to tell the story firsthand as much as possible. And that's what we did. So we put all the sticky notes on the big board, and there was a lot of sides, and we had to weed a lot of things out in order to craft the story that we now have. We prayed over it. I prayed over it. And today we have the documentary that we have.
That process to me was so important, even to learn from as a young producer. We want to tell the story well, and that doesn't mean just sharing our opinion. That actually means elevating voices of varying thought and not adding only to one echo chamber, but bringing a more holistic perspective for people to be able to watch and make up their own mind. I mean, you wanted to interview a terrorist. I wanted to talk about the cows dying because that happened. And I was heartbroken because like the farmers were called up in reserves and there was cows. I mean, those are such different stories, but both a part of the context. The cows didn't make it in the film, and I'm grateful that we stayed true to really the story that we were telling. As a mom and a director, what was one of the most challenging parts of creating this? And what was one of the most rewarding?
The most challenging part was, in order to tell the story that we did, I had to go through all the raw footage of October 7th. All the ashes, all the trauma. And then after going through hours of footage, I had to go feed my boys. I had to go make dinner. And so the challenge was between being a witness of such grief and such pain and such hatred, and at the same time having to turn around and embrace my boys and embrace life and teach them and walk out love in the midst of all of that while you're going through all your own emotions. I think that was the hardest part, for sure.
And in that, would you say that it is a reflection of really what Israelis are doing at all times? This contrast, we're grieving, we're mourning with those who mourn, and we're also showing up and celebrating life. Sometimes hours apart, a day apart. And so it was extreme to watch, all of us face this, but it was also an invitation to really start seeing through the eyes of all the local Israelis, but also the local body of how do you hold on to hope?
Absolutely.
How do you find the hope in the midst of all of this? You talk about hope a lot as you process this film, as you share about it. How did you find hope in the midst of these ashes?
That was hard. And the truth is that the voice of hatred and the voice of pain is always going to be heard louder than the voice of love and the voice of reason. But walking with these believers, especially 3 specific ones that we highlight, a Palestinian pastor, a Jewish pastor, and then an IDF soldier from South Africa, of all places, South Africa, right? To hear them walk out their story, walk out their life, their grief, their struggles, and then in the midst of all of that, the constant echo of the love of Jesus. In the midst of that, the hope, that was the highlight. That is the beauty. And so to see that the name of Jesus in their life was held high and was the actual driving force behind the life that they still had, that's the beauty. Jesus is the beauty in these ashes. And so it was a difficult process that when you look at the darkness, it's sometimes hard to see exactly that. But Jesus is the beauty. He's the only person that bridges this huge, humongous gap between Arabs and Jews here in the land even. So many around the world are trying to fix this with human initiatives, with two-state solutions, with gatherings and conversations. And I had a conversation with someone that lives in my city. She's been part of these gatherings between Palestinians and Jews for 40 years. She even shared with me that the divide right now with even friends that she's had for over 20 years, Palestinian friends that she's been close to for 20 years, they stopped on October 7th, but it wasn't because of hatred, it was because of pain. And through Jesus, that pain can absolutely be bridged. It can be bridged, but it's only through Jesus that it's possible.
I think it does set this film apart, that you chose to interview both a Palestinian pastor and a Jewish pastor, both believers, both shepherds, both fathers that are leading their congregations and their families in this complex time of such animosity. And this message that there is possibility of peace and reconciliation right now, it's needed. But why would you say this message is needed both regionally and around the world?
I think there's two main reasons. One of them is the world has polarized opinions so much to now where it's almost like you have to decide whether you are for Israel or for Palestinians. And Alon, the IDF soldier in this film, actually describes it better than anybody else. He speaks especially to this subject. But as believers, we're called to a higher purpose. We are called to higher purpose. And this idea that we have to be that polarized is not the love of God. It's not the heart of Yeshua. So I think that's one of the first reasons. And the second one is that even Christians around the world were struggling to see truth from lies and are losing an eye on their brother that's here in Israel. And the unity that is being walked out every day by believers here on the ground is a testimony to the world, I believe, of how it can be, and that there doesn't have to be that divide. It doesn't.
What is your hope that those that watch this film take away, for them to feel, to do, to think after witnessing these stories?
I hope that this will be the start of a conversation. I hope that it starts dialogue between people again about the difficult things that we're facing here in the Middle East that won't stay here. It will also touch the United States. It will touch the world. I hope it will start a conversation and that it will bring people together once again.
And that conversation, you really set the table with this film. And not only with the film, there's also a toolkit that Firm has created to help create questions that open up the conversation and dialogue between congregations, churches, and houses. There's a toolkit, and so can you describe, if somebody wants to watch the film, does it cost? What are the first steps?
The film is free to watch. You can sign up on the website. There's the toolkit right there to help you set the table for conversation in your small group, in your campuses, in your congregations. It's all there.
Amazing. And really, if you want to watch the film, if you want to show it, share it with friends or your church or your congregation, we've linked it below. And really, this is our invitation for you to join the conversation, for you to see through the eyes of believers here in Israel, for you to really mourn with those who mourn, and also ask God for his heart for this land, both today and moving forward. And so, is there anything else you wanted to say to our audience around the world about this film or about what you're hoping to leave with them?
As you watch this film, I just want to challenge you to not just watch it and absorb information in your head, but to really let it touch your heart. Let it touch your emotions and ask God what he wants to speak to you through this, and discover what's there for you.
What we've seen is clear, and the story doesn't end in ashes. We're seeing beauty and hope rise through Yeshua. And if you want to watch it yourself, if you want to share it with friends or your community, your congregation, you can click the link and we'll send it to you. We'll send you a whole toolkit. For continual coverage from on the ground in Israel, please subscribe to this channel and visit us at allisraelnews.com.